Hi folks, I'm Spence, and on today's episode of Cult Mania we're going to be talking about one of my most anticipated films of the year, VHS 99. Now, anyone who has been a fan of this channel will know that I am in love with the VHS franchise. I have done 2 videos prior and I've covered every single entry. So, the fact that we were getting another film this year was very, very exciting to me. I was a little worried because it appeared to be rushed into production after 94 did very well. There were a few names attached that I was a bit like, interesting choice. But, you know, it's VHS, so I couldn't really not be excited. Now, I'm going to break this down in the way that I've done all previous ones and talk about each segment separately. For those of you who don't know, this is an anthology series in which everything is done in a found footage style. More recently, everything has been designed to look like it was made on a VHS. That was originally the idea. Then that sort of disappeared as we went into 2 and viral, and then it came back. And as you can tell, this one, last one was 94, this is 99. So that does play a factor, sort of, maybe a bit. Anyway, on with the show. We've got 5 little shorts to deal with. So, up first.
Play or die! Play or die!
Now, normally this is where I would talk about the wraparound for this particular film. But the wraparounds are a little bit weird for 99, so actually I'm going to start with the first of the proper short stories. So, Shredding is our first proper story. This follows a punk band in the 90s, they're sort of teenagers, skaters, that's the sort of punk we're talking about, who decide that they are going to go and investigate the venue in which another punk band, a very sort of L7-ish band, were killed. They were killed in a stampede when everyone tried to flee from the venue when, I believe, a fire happened. And they're going to go down, they're going to investigate, and they're going to play, you know, they're going to record themselves playing on the ill-fated stage. Now, as you can guess, that's going to go very supernaturally wrong, and it's going to be a terrible idea. And you'll be thankful that it's a terrible idea, because fucking hell, I hated every single character in this short. This short is full of the most annoying, twatty teenagers ever. This is the Final Destination 3 of found footage things in which you are just waiting for everyone to die horribly. Now, thankfully, the more violent sequences in this do, in fact, live up to that. And there are some very cool effects. There are some very, very cool designs for some creaturey people, and I was very impressed by that. Unfortunately, along with the most infuriating characters committed to screen this year, this is also the most chaotically shot of all of the segments in this film, and that is a problem, especially being front-loaded right at the front of the film. We are frequently cutting between multiple cameras, some of which do look like VHS cameras, some of which have not been treated in any way and just look like raw modern digital, like very, very crystal clear, which I know a lot of people will not be bothered by, but the period aspect of the film is something that I love, and the VHS style is something that I love, so not having that was quite disappointing. There are some great moments in the visuals. There is a bit in which they insert some documentary of the old band, and it really does have the flavour of an old sort of MTV interview, or perhaps something a little bit shitter than that. And that looks really good, but we are constantly cutting between all these different things. It's like someone's taped over part of the tape, so sometimes bits of it, sort of, you'll get a little flash that's meant to cover up like a time jump, but it's so disorientating and so frustrating, and I could actually imagine could be like a bit of a seizure risk. And it's such a shame because the core concept of like spooky, ghosty zombie band is really cool. And like I said, the effects work is very cool. It's just the most disorientating way of doing it. And runs into that trap of there are lots of points in which you've gone from these really bright, changing lots of scenes to very dark sequences in which it's not very easy to see what's going on. And yeah, this is the one that feels the most easy to attack for being so fan footage it hurts. So, not a great start.
The faster you breathe, the faster you use up your air, so you can't panic.
Now, Suicide Bid was the story I was the least looking forward to seeing because it's directed by Johannes Roberts, who I have not liked anything they have made. That was grammatically awful, but I'm leaving it in. But actually, I quite like this story. It follows a young woman who wants to join a college sorority, something I have no real understanding of given that I live in the UK. The suicide bid of the title is to do with the fact that she's only going to apply to one sorority, which apparently, if you don't get in, well, you're screwed, so that's why it's suicide. Anyway, she has to go through hazing, of course, to get into the sorority because these things are ridiculous. And to do that, she's going to have to be buried alive because there is a sort of folk tale about a young woman who wanted to join said sorority and was buried alive. However, she was forgotten about. And when they went to dig her up, she'd vanished. She should have been dead, but she'd vanished. So, spooky times. Ghost. Ooh. Anyway, they bury her. It's all a load, it's all a load of shit. She's terrified. She's down in the coffin, underground. And to be honest, they could have left it there because that's terrifying enough. This is incredibly, incredibly claustrophobic. I don't suffer with claustrophobia, but I do think this does a very, very good job of doing that because you've got just this camera with the little torch on inside the coffin, and that's freaky. And it does it very, very, very well. Up there with like vanishing levels of oof. And yeah, they could, to be honest, this could have been something much more. They could have just left it as being completely realistic and simply, just gone the terror of being trapped in a coffin. There are supernatural elements to it, and the effects for them are very cool. The designs are awesome, and yeah, this was a very, very nice surprise. Yeah, it's not my favourite of any VHS storyline, but no, it's one of those brilliant things where it's just a really solid idea executed very, very well, and that feels like it progresses at a very nice rate. It doesn't overstay its welcome at all.
And welcome back!
Now, next up, OZZY'S Dungeon, directed by electronic composer Flying Lotus. This is going to be the one that I think everyone remembers. This is your safe haven. You're the subject for this one. It's the crazy one. This follows a TV show, a sort of really low-budget, crappy kids' game show in the style of sort of Takeshi's Castle meets the Crystal Maze on the budget of £5. And it stars Stephen Ogg, who many people will recognise as Trevor from GTA 5, doing his best cheesy asshole, like, showman presenter for the kids show. And it's basically all about what happens when the show goes wrong. And I do not want to say any more than that because this is the most the path that this takes is insane and a lot of fun, and also sure to make people squirm. This is just, I don't really know how you even pitch something like this one. But it is so much fun and just manages to balance a level of humour. It's easily the funniest of... It's probably one of the funniest of any of the VHSs. That then manages to shift to being so incredibly dark and disturbing, and then still have moments of humour. The balance is just amazing. So yeah, I don't really want to say too much. The aesthetic that they get for the TV show is spot on. I know I'm a little bit young to remember stuff from but I do remember crappy kids competition telly from when I was younger, and it does nail that in a sort of even shitter than I remember it way. And Stephen Hawking is just brilliant in it. Now, the GAWKERS. Now, this is where things get a little bit strange, because this is technically the wraparound, although the wraparound has very, very little to do with the actual story. Because we open up with this really shit stop-motion army men sequences in which, you know, it's just someone's got a camera really close up to an army man and they're talking, and then they sort of move them along. In, you know, army men aren't animated, are they? Anyway, that stuff is very strange because it's just how, like, it's almost like a cold open with no explanation, and then you go into treading. But those are actually really funny and a lot of fun. And then it turns out that these are being made by someone who has stolen their brother's camera. And then we are introduced to his brother, who is super laddie, and his friends, who are also super laddie, and just, you get a load of them being twats, trying to look up girls' skirts, trying to peep on neighbours. And this reminded me very much of the very first segment from VHS 1, in that it's suddenly like, oh, I've got to put up with these absolute twat bags. At least here, there is a little bit more humour, and I think the humour lands a bit better. But it was a bit like, this is going to be another annoying one. It's going to be a bit like Shredding, where I'm just going to want everyone to die really, really quickly. And anyway, they start perving on the new sexy neighbour, who the nerdy brother manages to befriend. And so they want to be able to get access into her house through her webcam. And of course, this is VHS, this is horror, they are going to get more than they bargained for. And that's all I'll say. This is probably the simplest of all the stories, but I think it's actually quite effective. Because it's such a simple setup, and you know that there is a twist going to come, you know that something is going to be the matter with the neighbour. It holds off really long and does build a degree of tension, and you are just waiting to see what is going to happen. And yeah, I enjoyed that about it. It's by no means anything particularly exciting, and it, in some ways, it's probably the least ambitious of all of the shorts. But there is a nice build towards something, and like I said, the tension is there. And I guess my only criticism is, as a wraparound, it doesn't do quite as much to tie it into a grand narrative, especially when you compare it to, despite the fact that I didn't really like 94's wraparound particularly, they tried to tie it in with so much more, and it packed a lot more wallop, whereas this is sort of wallop right at the end.
Remember, fresh souls taste the best.
And now we come to our final story, To Hell and Back, which follows a camera crew who are planning to record sort of a possession. There are witches who want to bring a demon into a vessel, which is cool. That would be in probably any other story. That would be your setup. That would be your setup and your payoff and your everything. Not here. because the invocation, or whatever you want to call it, the possession, goes wrong, and the camera crew end up in hell. And that would be enough, but actually, this is also a really funny little storyline, because you've just got these characters bickering about the fact that they've ended up in hell, and weird monstrosities popping up. There's some great effects in this one. The location is actually fantastic. I have no idea where they filmed this, but it looks great. This is probably one of the most unique looking VHS segments we've ever gotten. And I was very impressed. It looks fantastic. And features a new character who is going to be, I feel like, is this film's Ratma from the last one, Mabel, who is just fantastic and is a complete joy for all the time that they are on screen. And I just... This one had me smiling all the way through, because it doesn't go into any of the disturbing territory that something like the OZZY'S Dungeon one does. This is just fun, and just full of... It's the most like you've given... It's made by the people who just did... Is it Deadstream, that's just come out on Shudder, which I haven't seen yet, sorry. And they are bringing the comedy to it, and you can also tell that they were just like, oh my god, we've got money, let's just go for it. This is the thing that I really love about the VHS series, is because they're short stories and they're done in the found footage style, people just go for it. People come up with such bizarre random scenarios, and I think because they're made in this weirdly constrained manner through the found footageness, it just makes them work, because you've not experienced... A lot of them would be completely fresh and different if they were made not in found footage, but because they are, they feel so different and so unique. And I just... This is the perfect way to end the film, because it's just a nice little sort of... It's got a bit of everything. Now, 99. Overall, you can tell, I really enjoyed it. I was sort of predisposed to like it because of everything else. So obviously, if you are not a VHS fan, this is never going to win you round to the idea of these being brilliant if they weren't your sort of thing before. But it's a very good entry. This isn't as good as 94. I think after watching 94, that became my favourite. I think it goes viral, VHS, this, to 94 for me. Because I do think the first story sort of lets it down because of the technical aspects. I think the wraparound story could have been a little bit better, could have had a little bit more going on. But, I mean, you've got one very good story and two absolute bangers. So, if you're a fan, get on it, watch it. It won't disappoint. And I believe we are due to get another one next year. I think this is going to be, for the next couple of years, Shudder's go-to thing for Halloween. And long may it continue. This is probably my favourite horror franchise at this point. I can't wait to see what happens next. If anything, actually, this is probably the one franchise that I would love to be a part of at some point, but that's me just being a pipe dream person. Anyway, VHS 99. I really liked it. But that is just my opinion. What did you think of VHS 99? What was your favourite story? Where would you rank it in amongst all the other VHSs? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos, and I shall see you next time.